You've decided that you want to try woodworking as a hobby. That's great! It's a lot of fun, and you can make furniture for your house. Maybe down the road you can even make money at it. I love it. It's a great hobby. So, how do you get started? Well, you could go down to the store and buy a bunch of power tools, and that's a totally legitimate way to get going with woodworking. That's how I got started. But if I were going to start over again from scratch, I'd probably go a different direction. I'd get a handful of good hand tools and start that way. Hand tools are small, and they're clean, and they're pretty safe. You're unlikely to cut off one of your fingers while you're still figuring things out. So, what should we start with? Chisels, saws, how about a plane? Planes are good? Why don't we get a hand plane? Okay, so I went on the internet and I searched for hand planes, and this is what I found. Look at that. It's beautiful. It's precision engineered, it's beautifully machined, it's got really nice wood. Yeah, I think that's the one. I think I'm going to go ahead and buy that as my first plane. How much is it? Jesus Christ, really? Oh, I just don't have that kind of money sitting around, especially to spend on one hand tool. I just can't do it. There's got to be a better way. If you don't have that kind of money kicking around, and a lot of us don't, there's really only one way to get started. Buy old, vintage tools and fix them up. I've been doing it for years, and I've got a big collection of tools that work well and are reliable. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, I don't have to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on each tool, but how much money do I need to spend? I don't think you need to spend very much. In fact, I think we can put together a really solid kit full of hand tools for $100. I know, that doesn't sound like a lot of money, and I'm not even totally sure we can do it, but I think we can. Here, let me show you an example. So this is the first hand plane that I ever bought. I paid $5 for it. It's a jack, a number 5, the exact same size as that fancy plane I showed you in the beginning of the video. Now, it's old, it's probably about 100 years old. It's a little bit beat up, it's got some rust on it, some dings, things like that. And when I first bought it, it was in bad shape, and I had to restore it pretty carefully. But again, it was only $5. Now, a plane like this, even after I've restored it, is it as good as that super fancy, precision engineered plane? No, it's not. But it is a really good tool. How's it work? It works really well. Now, this was $5, and you might think, oh, that's just a fluke. You can't get planes for $5 every day. Well, this is the next jack plane that I bought that I also paid $5 for, and this is the next one that I bought, and I paid $2 for this one. Seriously, $2. So, with deals like this $5 jack plane sitting around, getting together a whole set of woodworking tools for $100 seems doable. Now, there are a couple things I should say about this. First, if you're going to go this route, you need to really enjoy going to places like tag sales, estate sales, flea markets, and antique stores, because you're going to be rummaging around in old boxes full of junk, and then haggling over it, trying to get a good price. Now, for me, that part's easy. I really like junk, and I enjoy negotiating. The other thing is that this is an approach for people who have more time than money. You can buy every single woodworking tool you need, used, for cheap, but it's not going to happen quickly. It probably took me a year or a year and a half to get a whole set of hand tools together. The good news is, you don't need very many tools to start doing your first project. Get a couple of chisels, a plane, and a couple of saws, and you can build your own bench, a stool, a small table, boxes, all sorts of fun stuff. And you can leave the more specialized tools for later. You also are going to have to learn about restoring tools. Now, a lot of woodworkers say things like, oh, I don't want to mess around with tools, I just want to get to the woodworking. Well, I don't really agree with that theory. For one thing, I think working on tools is fun. I just enjoy it. Another thing is you get to learn a ton of useful skills like metalworking, getting parts to fit together, finding replacement parts, all of that stuff. It's really useful. And on top of that, once you've restored a tool from the ground up, there's nothing about that tool that's going to be a mystery to you. You'll know every single part, and so if something goes wrong, it'll be easy to fix. When you buy a fancy new tool, you might be afraid to even adjust it or change something about it. If you've only spent a couple of bucks on something, why not modify it or try to make it work better? You've got nothing to lose. The last thing I want to mention is buying used tools can be easier or harder depending on where you live. Some parts of the country just don't have a ton of old used tools around. But that being said, I've bought really good tools at good prices in Connecticut, Florida, California, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. So a lot of parts of America are filled with good old tools that you can pick up for a reasonable price. Now, I really want to talk more about hand planes because they're one of my favorite tools, but they're a complicated topic and I'm probably going to have to do a few videos on that. In the interest of getting started right away, let's talk about the mighty spokeshave. If you've never used one before, the spokeshave is a versatile and simple tool. It planes curves, it does chamfers on straight work or curved work, and it also lets you shave square or rectangular pieces of wood down to round, so you can make tool handles or chair legs without even having a lathe. All you need is your spokeshave. When you're first getting started, you really only need one spokeshave. Me, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. Because honestly, I'm kind of a hoarder. But these were also really inexpensive. They cost me $5, $3, $8, and $1. And frankly, for $1, I'll take it. Now, there's two models that you're going to find most of the time, and that's the Stanley 51 and the Stanley 151. This is the 51 right here, and you can see it's very, very basic. It's a blade, a cap iron, and a cast iron set of handles and sole. You can find these everywhere. They're really inexpensive and they work fine. I like mine a lot. The other one that you're going to find a lot is the 151. Now it's exactly the same as the 51, except that it's got these two height adjustment screws that let you fine-tune the blade, especially without loosening the lever cap too much. This is the one that I prefer, and I bought this one in a crate at a flea market for $3. It served me really well, especially at that price. Lots of companies made spokeshaves. So for instance, there's this one over here. I have no idea who made it because there's no maker's mark anywhere on it. But it's the exact same thing. Blade, lever cap, cast iron handles, and a sole. Now, you might want some advice on buying these, but honestly, with so few parts, there's not much to know. If it's got a blade, a cap, handles, and there are no empty screw holes or anything like that, you're probably good. You should check to make sure it's not super rusty, although most of them are going to be a bit rusty, and that's not really a big deal. So, I think you could probably go out to your local antique mall, poke around, find one of these. I think around $5 is probably a good amount of money, and then you've got your first tool. So that's everything you need to know to get started. Hand tools are out there. They're cheap, and there's a lot of them. So take $5 and go get yourself a spokeshave. Next time, we'll talk about hand planes. Thanks for watching.